Hey there, this is Erica from Ever Educating, and welcome to the third Flixier tutorial in the series. Flixier is the sponsor of this video, and it's a cloud-based video editing software that allows you to edit your video lessons in using any computer that you'd like. And so we've already covered the basics, so now we're moving on to more intermediate features of the tool. And so today we're talking about how to create videos that have multiple tracks going on at the same time so that you can actually show yourself, but also other videos on the screen simultaneously. I'll show you how to do that in today's tutorial. To give you a sense of what I'm going over in today's video, here are a couple examples of ones that are just a video and an image. I'll show you having videos at the same time as well. But in this case, to show you here, you can record yourself on screen talking about definitions of terms, for example, and then on the actual screen itself, you can have an image that has the term, the definition, and an example, maybe an image. And so you can create a video where, yes, you're on the screen and they can follow along with what you're saying, but you also have written text that helps them as well. So this is one example of having a video that has two things going on at the screen on the same time. Now, there's also the second example here, which I'll play as well. And so in this case, maybe you need most of the screen to have the text of whatever it is you're going through with your students. So for example, maybe you're going to define or have an example of a 3-step process. And so you create an image, a slide that has the steps. Oh, ignore step 2. That should be step 3. But then you also have you on screen at the top as well. So again, a simultaneous of, hey, you're on the screen so they can see, okay, I'm following along with my interpreter saying. They can also see visually what you're talking about in the video itself. And so these are examples of an image and a video. And again, I'll show you examples of 2 videos at the same time. But first, I want to show you how I created these, okay? So we're going to go ahead and delete them and start from scratch. So what you do is you go ahead and import whatever video you have where you're speaking, right? So I'm going to go ahead and let's say that this one, right, is me speaking about the literary terms. And so obviously the first step is to edit out any empty space, right, where you're not speaking, any typos or errors that you said when you were speaking. And so you can just go ahead through and do the basic edits as I showed in that first tutorial. So that's the first step here as far as how to set up your video. Okay, now, so you have it on the bottom track, and let's say you know that you want to have you on one side and then an image on the other. You can go ahead and click and drag, right? So drag it until you're a good size, you're on the screen where you want to be, okay? So as you notice, there's black spacing here. That's not an issue because the image will go on top, okay? So you have that, and now you need your image. So again, it already should be imported into your library, and you click and drag it on top as a second track. And so now when you play it, you can see that's how it's entered. It's already been chosen here. It's in yellow. So you can click and drag it. Okay, so now when it plays, oh, it moved this back here. So click and drag that over. Okay, and then here you can make this bigger, right? And so now you have these side by side, and you can move it around to however you like the look of it. And now let's say this section all the way to here is you talking about cool as a cucumber. Then you can go ahead and click and drag the image to be all the way until the end of that first scene. And so now it will play the whole time as you're speaking about this term. So it's simple as that. You just have the 2 tracks, and the image in this case goes on top of the video of you speaking. And so that's the first step in creating these types of videos. So that's an example of having an image on top of the video. Very simple. You would just go ahead and create as many images as you needed, add it to the library, and then just put it on top of the track at the location that you need it to be, and then lengthen or shorten it as needed. Okay, and so that's the first approach to doing this. Now the second one, let's say, I'm going to cut the video short. Now let's say this portion is an example of a process. First thing you're going to do is move it up to the top track. You're going to move it up 1. Once it's up there, we're going to go ahead and drag the image of the process below it because we want it to be underneath the video of, in this case, me speaking. And so right there, we're going to go ahead and make this bigger so it takes up the whole screen. And then in this case, you lengthen it again to make sure it covers the whole scene. And then in this portion, you notice obviously it's very big, so we're going to again resize it to be the right fit, right? So let's say I have this here, but there's a lot of space around me that I don't really need. I can go ahead and do the cropping here. And then I can say, all right, well, I don't need this portion from the left. I don't need this portion from the right. So now it's just really focused on you. And you have the step process that you can see below it. Okay, so now as this plays, again, it's you speaking and the image is behind it. Okay, so you went from in front of it to behind it. And in my second tutorial, I had, how to add transitions and overlays if you want to make it fancier in between what you're talking about. But I think having just a cut from one to the other is totally fine. So these are how you create just 2 tracks, right? One with video and one with the image. But what if you want 2 videos or more happening at the same time? So let's go ahead and do that next. Okay, so now I've added here another video. It's just another portion of the one from before. But now I'm going to add a video next to it rather than an image. And so it works the same way, but of course now you're going to have to make sure your timing is very practiced between the 2 videos. So once you create one, then you want to make sure that your pacing is equal in your second video. So for example here, let's say again, we're talking about how to go through the assignment checklist to make sure that you've done everything that you need for a certain unit. So maybe in this video, I'm explaining that. I'm going over, all right, here's the first thing you need to do, the next, right? So that's me ready to go. Next to me, I'm going to put a second video where I actually show the checklist. So in that case, I'm going to move myself over a bit. Let's say there for now. And this is actually a video of me going over creating the checklist or using the checklist that's in my High Flex activities collection. So I'm going to go ahead and use that as my example here. And so again, equal it up. And you'll see here, obviously, it's too long to actually fit well next to me. But again, that's simple. You go ahead and crop from the left and from the right, okay, to wherever you want it to be. You can also do the bottom out, a bit from the top, right? And now you can resize it. So go ahead and make it bigger to really just focus on the portion that you need. So now obviously I can make this even bigger. Let's say right there, right? And then for me, since I'm a bit too close here, I'll go ahead and move the top layer, the top track a bit to the right, click on my video and move it over now that I know. And then go back to the top one and move it along. There we go. So now it's more even. So the reason I do that is because even though I cropped the video, as you can see with this line here, it is still covering the other side. So I'd have to move it to the right in order to actually click on the one below it. Okay, but now when you're seeing this video, I'm talking about the checklist, but eventually you would see that the checklist moves, right? And so in this case, you'd have, right? So you have one video playing and then the other video playing. You just need to make sure that it aligns correctly, again, with time and with pacing. Okay, so in this case, it would have been videos that were very similar in length once they were both edited to be correct, right? And so we moved from the process to now, hey, here are 2 videos happening on the screen at the same time. Something to keep in mind is that I highly recommend having one video only that has audio, and the other one is just showing whatever it is you're talking about. So in this case, me talking about going over all the items on the assignment list and showing those assignments being added to the list one by one, right? And so there'd be no audio on this video, only on the first. Same with if you're going to describe some kind of process that's even more involved than a simple 3-step one. Maybe there's 9 steps and you want to show images and videos of them. Again, I recommend having one where you're speaking and the other one where you're showing, okay? If not, then you'd have to do something like this. So maybe you have 2 videos and in each of them, you're speaking about different things that are important to know. In that case, you want to really plan it out and have, okay, well, in this first portion, I'm speaking here and I'm showing something on here, right? And then in this next section, now I'm paused, right? So I've paused the video of me speaking and it's just an image really of myself while I speak in the other one, right? I speak in this checklist. And then I switch back to me speaking and the checklist video keeps moving. So that it is an option if you have, okay, well, here are 2 videos that I'm combining together and I speak in one and then I alternate and then I speak in the same one and then I alternate. And so in that case, it's a bit more weaving that goes on than simply having, hey, one video is where I'm speaking and the other one is where I'm showing whatever it is I'm talking about in video form, which has no audio. So that's what I really recommend. Now, keep in mind, if you're doing a video recording and you have like background sounds being, made, you don't want it to be included, that's very simple. All you'd have to do is click into it and say, if you're here in audio, and say detach audio. And then once it's detached, you can go ahead and click it and delete it. And now that portion will not have any audio on this video, so you won't have any graininess or anything that you don't really want when your video is playing side by side. Another example I want to point out, and so in this case, I've added another clip of a different video. Let's say you only want to create one video, but you still want it to be more visually engaging than just you there on the screen. So what you can consider is the stock library, right? So you don't have to create these, they're available to you. Potentially, they might connect to your topic. So let's say, for example, you have this video and click into it. And so this is going to be a fourth of the screen. So you just drag it in and it'll tell you when it's a fourth of the screen. And so here, let's say I'm talking about a certain cultural aspect of life, right? And so maybe I want to have like a map scene. Oh, not map scene. Okay, and here. So we have a globe here. I'm going to drag it on top. Okay, and so when this globe, it just moves, right? So that's pretty nice. So I'll go ahead and have that there, right? So once the video ends, my first one of me speaking, we'll have it in there too. So we'll get rid of that. And so now we have that part. So if it plays, you obviously see that it takes up the whole screen. So we're going to minimize it and have the map next to me. Okay. And so map, now other cultural things. So maybe we're talking about like romances, right? How romantic relationships differ depending on the country and the generation and the time period, etc. So let's look up romance. I'm using pixels here and I'm just filtering for videos, right? So obviously nothing too steamy. These seem to be very steamy here. This one looks like it can be fine. So click and drag on top. So now we have that one here. And when that one plays, all right, so it's just 2 people being all cutesy. So once again, the end of the clip and delete that. Click into it so we can see how to minimize that one. Okay. And then in this case, it's not completely even. So there we go. We'll move that. And now we need one more, right? So of course, this can be, again, an image where you talk about romance around the world, right? So you use it as an image that just plays on the side. That can be an option. But let's say you just want to keep on going. So you have thinking of the world, thinking of romances. So maybe you're thinking about wedding ceremonies. Okay, so right there. So here's, seems to be in bride and groom. Drag that there. Oh, how perfect is that? And so once again, you go ahead and cut it. And you move it where it needs to be. Okay. So now you notice there, it goes over this. It's not, again, an even. So that's an easy fix. I'm going to go ahead and move this one above. So now it's over this fourth one. And so now we have 4 videos playing at once. So maybe you think this is too much at once, but it's an option here of, all right, me speaking about something and showing images that relate to it, right? Or videos that relate to it. Maybe you have you speaking and then you have an image of text and then only 2, right, that are contextual. But it's up to you. But here is an example of curating a lot of tracks, right? You can keep on going. More than 4, you can have 6, you can have 8, you can have ever many as you want. But of course, eventually it becomes a bit too busy. So those are a few different examples of what you can possibly do. One thing I want to point out is I use Canva to create the illustrations or the images that I have, on the next to or behind the video of me speaking. So in case you haven't used Canva, I do have a link below as well as a tutorial on it. But my tip is when you create a design, when you want to have the background be, again, like that 3-step process kind of deal, use YouTube thumbnail because that's the size of a video, a regular video. And so you can work with a blank page or you can go ahead and use a template. So I use a blank page to make it easy. And you just add in the text as necessary. Now, if you do want to create the side image instead, my suggestion is to use an Instagram story template because it's longer than it needs to be, but that's not a big deal. You can just make sure you don't use the whole thing, maybe just use like 3/4 of it. And then when you add it to the image, so as you can see, it's not the full thing, it was just this top part. So you can see it had a little bit left there. And so I use the Instagram story for that. So those are the 2 main ones I use when creating images. Though of course you can also use Google Slides if you want to make it this way as well. But I feel it's easy to know that every single time these images are the size of the video that you need to create. If you found this video helpful, do click like and let me know. If you have any questions, comment below with them, and subscribe if you want to make sure not to miss out on any future videos on this channel, including the rest of the tutorials for Flixier.